Good. That's a good catch.
All right, I have 5:45. I will call the meeting to order. Would stand for a moment of silence, and Dr. Hall, if you would.
We are going to have a moment of silence here, and if anybody's watching, you'll notice we're all wearing T-shirts in honor of Lieutenant Norman, who died in the line of duty to the Memphis Fire Department, and he is a part of the Lakeland Lions family, as his wife, Ashley Norman, is one of our teachers, and their son is a student in the Lakeland school system as well, and we are just forever grateful for his sacrifice on behalf of everybody who lives in this community, and we're so grateful for all the sacrifices of firefighters everywhere, and this particular moment of silence in his honor.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Recorder, if you would call the roll, please.
Chair Laura Harrison.
Here.
Vice Chair Jeremy Burnett.
Here.
Keith Acton.
Present.
Deborah Thomas.
Present.
Michelle Childs.
Here.
Superintendent Worrell.
Here.
We do have a quorum. This is a work session, so we'll take a more relaxed approach to this meeting. I would like to welcome everyone to, I guess, our first meeting of the new school year, of the 23-24 school year. Hope everyone had a great day, or at least a halfway not chaotic day. By all accounts, it sounded like things went fairly smoothly. Other than a few hiccups here and there, it sounds like both schools other than the rain this morning, there was a big amount of rain.
The rain was unfortunately timed, particularly at Lakeland Elementary.
But it sounded like everybody had a pretty good back-to-school day, and so just welcome everybody to the 23-24 school year. It's pretty exciting.
Absolutely.
Yes, and welcome to our 10th grade class. Well, one more class out of this year. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? Hearing none. Dr. Horn, will you lead us through our agenda?
Absolutely. First, we have the legislative representative update.
Currently, I do not have an update because the General Assembly is not in session. Should they call a special session, I will report back on that. I believe later on the agenda, we will talk about a possible discussion on a TSBA resolution.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Ms. Harrison is correct. I think we had a great first day of school. I appreciate certainly all of the teachers and staff and administrators that worked so hard to prepare for today. Everybody seemed really organized. They seemed prepared. Communication that I could tell was excellent. And most importantly, they all just seemed very excited. They just seemed excited, as we always are, to have the kids back in the building, and it was exciting. As there always are, there's some hiccups that Ms. Harrison mentioned with. They almost always concern transportation, buses and car rider lines and things. We did have a few late buses today, but that is to be expected, we have learned, and we just get better and better every day, and then we stop thinking about it at some point during the first couple of weeks of school. But it was definitely a great day, and I want to particularly commend Ms. Lockhart and Ms. Martin for their leadership of those schools, which is where the main things happen. Those are the main things, and they're taking care of that business. We also had a great system-wide in-service on Friday. A lot of excitement there. Thanks to the board for being there and showing your support and your participation as well. I did want to share just a few things that I know people tend to be curious about on the first day of school. And those are the enrollment numbers. So I'll go over these if you guys want to take note. In kindergarten, and this is based on today. Now, we do see some fluctuation over those first couple of weeks of school. We'll have students that don't show up, the first day necessarily, but this was kids in seats today. In kindergarten, we've got a class of 161. In first grade, 169. Second grade, 208. Third grade, 193. Fourth grade, 211, for a total of 942 in the regular classes there. That does not include our preschool students that also attend on various schedules. At the middle school, we have 210 fifth graders, 225 sixth graders, 240 seventh graders, 207 eighth graders, 203 ninth graders, and 162 10th graders, for a total of 1247 at Lakeland Prep, and so that's a system-wide total as of today of 2189. So great group of students there at both schools, so we're excited about that. Also want to share just an update on the other kind of big thing that we're keeping an eye on, and that's our capital project. We've got a number of site improvements that are happening on the Lakeland Prep campus, and wanted to share just some estimates of completion. These are the latest estimates from the contractor, Moss Carpenter, and the Annex Road portion, which would connect the bus loop to the Annex. They're looking at a completion of October 6th, so hopefully shortly before fall break there. The soccer parking, that's the Annex parking, that would be completed 9/27 is what they're saying, so the end of September. So if you take those two together, we're still looking at kind of a pre-fall break goal. The soccer field, we've run into some things on the soccer field, which is not always surprising. There were some electrical things that had to be relocated. In addition, we knew the irrigation would have to be relocated. They ran into some electrical conduit that is fairly significant and has to be buried deeper into the ground to do the things we want to do. We have also added some some fairly significant concrete pad to the project so that we can put up some, we don't know what they're going to look like yet, but some better seating, some better permanent seating that will also give us the future ability to add to the visitor football side seating if we need to. Now that's pushing back their goal a little bit. Those were decisions on our end once we determined the best way to do it. But they're looking at the soccer field being done September 1st is their goal for that. So they're obviously going to push it as much as they can to see if they can get the grass growing, but that's the goal at this point. And then Campus Drive, we're still looking on some T-deck approvals. That was something else that was outside of our control. We believe we've got the approvals on the way that need to be. They're looking at a likely end of November completion of the extension of Campus Drive. But again, I do want to emphasize to everybody, these are estimates. okay? There's nothing in the contract that would hold them to that estimate. It depends on weather, depends on whatever else they discover while they do that project, but they are keeping those cranked along. So that would certainly be nice if we could have Campus Drive extended, halfway through this school year, well in advance of the next school year. And that's really all I have to share today, this first day of school.
Ms. Jones. So when you say the soccer field will be done September 1st, again, we may not meet that deadline, but if it were, when could you play on it? Because I know doesn't the grass need to sit for a while or be ready? I don't know the right word for it.
Here's the reality is,
Yeah, the gist.
it depends on the weather, because
Right.
ideally, in an ideal situation, you'd get the grass in over the summer. And if you get the grass in over the summer, it'll take root, you can start cutting it, and you could get it ready to play by the fall. Problem is, if you don't get it to take root in the fall, or, late summer, early fall, then not only is it not gonna be ready for the fall, it's not gonna be ready for the spring either.
Yeah.
Because it'll be dormant. So, I mean, it needs more time than that. So,
Extremely variable.
yes.
Okay.
I would say there's not we asked the turf provider that was gonna provide the turf, like, when did we think we could get the turf in and have a shot at it taking root and possibly being ready for the spring? And I'll just tell you, he said August 1st, month before, which makes me think we're not gonna make it.
Okay.
So it may be that both seasons of soccer, would play at the annex this year. We want to keep expectations realistic, but that's what
Right,
we're
right.
looking at right now. There's a chance if we have an unseasonably warm kind of fall, and it's possible, but I don't think it's likely.
None. Next item.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the monthly financial summary. We will have that by the actual board meeting, and we'll skip the approval of the agenda since this is just a work session. We do have a lengthy consent agenda there, if there's anything the board would like to not have on the consent agenda for the business meeting.
Is there any items the board would like to take off the consent agenda for the meeting next week? Hearing none. Next item.
Okay, the first item on the discussion action items is the approval of update to policy 4.600, the grading system.
Dr. Hall, will you brief us on these updates to this policy?
Yes, these are things that we discussed last month, and there was some, actually this came up in conversation even prior to last month. But there was conversation about, on semester exams, the idea that if somebody, it'd kind of be luck of the draw if you could be eligible for exemption for your semester exam if it was a one semester course in first semester versus second. So we are proposing new language that says for courses that are only one semester, students in grades 9 through 11 may also be exempt during the first semester, as opposed to only seniors being able to be exempt during the first semester. So if it's a one semester exam, we would add that language.
This item? Hearing none. Any objection to moving this item to the consent agenda?
No objection.
Hearing none, this item will be placed on the consent agenda for next week. Next item.
All right, the next item is 6.200, attendance. This also came out of board discussion and a recommendation from Ms. Martin. There are two things that would change our attendance policy. One is really just a clarification. It's one of those we think should go without saying, but sometimes that's not good enough, so we're going to go ahead and say it. Out-of-school suspensions are not considered excused absences for the purposes of anything, but that relates back to exam exemptions as well. And then secondly, dealing with extracurricular absences, non-school sponsored extracurricular activities, no absences requested during the state-approved TCAP testing window will be considered for approval. So that would make that board policy, meaning that the principal cannot make exceptions to that.
Discussion on this item? None. Any objection to moving this item to the consent agenda? Right.
Objection.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda next week. Next item.
All right, next item, we've got approval of extracurricular activities and clubs. This is based on new state law, brand new state law that says that the board must approve every extracurricular activity that takes place in one of their schools. So what we have asked to do at the board's request, asked the schools to do, is put together their list of extracurricular activities with descriptions, so you guys can go kind of from scratch. I don't, if it's the baseball team, I don't know that you get a real detailed description of what baseball is. But for everything else, these clubs and things that sometimes have acronyms, that gives the board and the public an opportunity to see what those are. Just for the public's information, there is also law that says parents must, in writing, express their consent for students to participate in any extracurricular activities.
Discussion on this item?
I do. Is it possible that this could be added to the website somewhere, just so, because I think the descriptions are helpful if a student was interested in doing it or a parent was interested in it. And maybe even if it could, the sports could have the grades, just because sometimes people are confused, because we do have elementary, middle, and high school at one school. And some clubs that are like labeled middle school might involve fifth graders. I believe like cheer or track sometimes can do that, but then other sports are, sanctioned, and they're not allowed to have fifth graders in those clubs. So, because I know just the average public doesn't always know which sport allows fifth graders or not, and what that looks like.
We can absolutely do that.
Okay.
Yep. Great
Discussion on this
suggestion.
item? Hearing none, any objection to placing this item on the consent agenda next week? Hearing none, this item will be placed on the consent agenda next week. Next item.
Next item is approval for nomination for TSBA Building of the Year competition for Lakeland Prep High School Edition. I know this board is familiar that the Tennessee School Boards Association has a competition for both new construction and for renovations. Lakeland School System has been the winner of this award before. We won for Lakeland Middle Preparatory School when it was built and got the first place Building of the Year award. There is a line in the application that says the board must approve the submission of this, and so by virtue of this agenda item itself, even if you can place it on the consent agenda, this would allow Renaissance Group that's handling the application to put that board meeting date on the application as being board approved.
On this item?
Full idea. Again, I look forward to celebrating this winning.
I do too. Any objection to placing this item on the consent agenda? Hearing none, this item will be placed on the consent agenda next week. Next item.
The next item is review the board evaluation. This is basically just, we have typically used the TSBA board self-evaluation model. This is the opportunity if any members of the board are not comfortable with that or would like to try a different approach, we can certainly look at that. But if not, in fact, I don't even think it requires board action, but we could leave it there, certainly. If not, we'll move forward with our usual method of board self-evaluation.
Members, can you send out, I don't think we have a link to it, or maybe we've already been sent it, but I don't think I've seen it.
You
But-
haven't this year.
Okay, can y'all send us just the updated so that if anybody has any changes or even additional questions or whatever they want to ask about, that they have the opportunity? And we'll just, if there's no objection, we'll place this item on the consent agenda, even though it really doesn't require board action, just to show
Right.
we've approved the instrument itself.
Right.
All right, hearing no objection, we'll have this on the consent.
Next item is review TSBA resolutions, and I think Ms. Childs has some things to share, as she indicated.
Okay, so just to give a quick overview, when we go to the TSBA convention, if you want TSBA as a whole to take on a particular issue, then as a board, we have to submit it, and that date is coming up very soon in early September or mid-September. And then all the school boards would vote on it or not, and you would have, if it is approved, you would have the power of all of the school boards and the TSBA lobbyists to try to assist with that. A couple of these came to my attention after that had happened last year, and while we did put it on our legislative agenda and we mentioned it to nothing really came of it. So I just want to go over it and see if the board was interested in submitting a resolution for these two different items, which I could be wrong, but I view them as likely to get support. It's just, again, one of those things that's like bringing it to the attention of enough people. And so actually, if you don't mind, Dr. Horrell, giving like kind of from a superintendent's point of view, why these could be helpful. Sorry, I'm just like putting you on the spot. But while he's looking at it, the first one is, again, they're both addressing the teacher shortages. And the first one is that right now, there's still a 30-day posting period. And so we would like to request that the 30-day posting period during the school year be removed because it forces you to get a substitute for a minimum of 30 days during that time. And then the next one was during COVID, they had temporarily removed the requirement of having to have waivers with teachers and that teach EOC courses, but then that was put back in. So we would like to ask that you have the opportunity to get a waiver. Not that you wouldn't, you can still absolutely hire, a teacher that meets all the requirements, but due to the teacher shortage across Tennessee, sometimes you have very capable people that, are like in a nursing field teaching biology, but you're not able to have them teach that the way the law is written right now. So I just wanted, from superintendent administrative point of view, what that could look like and what's been your experience and why these could or could not be helpful.
Yeah, and thank you. I just wanted to pull it up, make sure I didn't misspeak. But you did a very good job summarizing it. These are ads, so these are practical resolutions. They caused problems with us staffing some classrooms in situations where we had vacancies. So the 30-day posting period is you have to prove that you did everything you could to find a teacher, where in some cases we feel like we have the teacher that we need and would like to go ahead and request a waiver, which is in and of itself, quite a bit of work. But this don't pass go until you've taken out an ad and can prove it for 30 days is, I just feel like, and we feel like, an unreasonable barrier to getting somebody in the classroom that could possibly do a great job teaching those kids. So I think that would definitely support that and think it would be helpful. And the other is this specificity. We have run into this one as well, of you can't get a waiver at all if it's a course with an EOC exam, and with the number of EOC exams that there are and the number of teachers that are available that are certified to teach some of these subjects, that's also unreasonable. In some cases, we have somebody that we feel like, in our professional opinions, has the background and the content knowledge and the classroom management to do the job, but they're saying, period, can't if it's an EOC course. And so I also think that would be a reasonable, common sense change that would help teacher staffing throughout the state, not just with us.
Discussion on those two items? Is there any objection to proceeding with supporting those two items with the resolution submission?
So it'll be two different ones because they are, two different issues. And also, these don't have to be the only ones. So, because again, this is a work session. We have another business next week. So please send an email to Dr. Horrell, who can, send it out if there's another topic that you've been thinking about, especially, at the end of last legislative session that, you want us to take under consideration as well. So this is not necessarily the only resolutions that we can submit. I don't think there's a limit as to how many, we can present, but I do think these would be, I think they would get a lot of support at TSBA, and hopefully they would be passed.
And can I go ahead and mention one more that I'd like to write up?
Yeah.
And we've talked about this for a long time. And that is the fact that special needs preschool students are not funded in the TISA model. They weren't funded in BEP. We have 42 students. That includes 21 typical peers. So we have 21 special needs students.
That's a good one to do.
And 21 typical peers that we're required to have. It's a great program, and we've got a waiting list to be the typical peers because the classroom experience is so great. But we get $0 in the funding formula. And it affects a relatively, not relatively, a very small number of districts, but it does affect us because we don't qualify for voluntary pre-K funding like most of the districts do in the state. So I don't think it's even a big fiscal note, but we do need to keep ringing the bell, and I think a resolution might be a powerful way to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So
None.
we'll come back with those three, and if anybody has any ideas in the
Yeah.
meantime,
Mr.
we'll.
Burnett?
And not to beat my head against a concrete wall, but what are we calling it now? Not the third grade retention law, what's it called today?
Promotion.
Promotion law.
Is there, do we think that there's an appetite for TSBA to take up either absolute abolition of that law or, failing that, something similar to the resolution we sponsored?
Actually, the resolution we sponsored last year, I believe, did contribute toward changes of the law. They just didn't go into effect last year.
Right.
So they are in effect this year, and it's actually precisely what we were asking for, is using alternate measures to determine proficiency. So, be a little better.
Just to clarify to jump on Jeremy's question, or Mr. Burnett's question, now we know they're gonna have the alternate ones. Will that include the fourth graders? Because, those third graders that didn't get the alternate ones now have to pass.
The fourth graders, and I think we have two in this category.
Do you think that would be useful because it's not just gonna be that fourth grade, it's gonna be forever more. Even though all future fourth graders who fall in this situation will have had alternative assessments available to them during the third grade to make that decision, but should that not help them, they're still gonna get to fourth grade, and then they have to pass a certain measure, which I don't think they've determined yet, but it doesn't include the alternative.
No, if you get to, my understanding, it's always shaky as
I
quickly
know
as
it.
my
Well,
my
it's
understanding is
changed.
in fourth grade, you must be at or above expectations.
But only on the ELA TCAP, correct?
Only
I
on the
mean,
ELA TCAP.
I don't know, would that be one that I should ask for this class in every fourth grade, that they would consider an alternative assessment, like a literacy assessment? I don't know, like what we asked for in third grade. I'm just asking the question because we're in a work session and we can like.
Yeah, I mean, when you say should we, I don't know.
Would it be helpful?
Is it broad enough where, I know we have two kids, right? So would it be a broad enough thing across the state where it'd be worth taking up with TSBA to say, we need to allow, we as school boards collectively across the state would like to see these alternative assessments be allowed in fourth grade as well, not just third grade when we're measuring this literacy. So would that be worth it? Considering we have two, I don't know what other districts look like, and if you have any
I
polls
think
for
other
that.
districts
Okay,
have
most
a
will have
lot.
more.
Yeah, a lot
Yeah.
more.
More.
It certainly wouldn't hurt to do it. I feel like based on the feedback loop we've had before, there's not gonna be an appetite for that. I feel like they probably think they've did a lot to make the changes that they made, and the fourth grade wasn't really part of the conversation. However, I don't know that there was a clear understanding on what the situation would be in fourth grade, so we could certainly go for it and see if there's support.
Do you think it would be worth considering a resolution that would ask to expand the screeners that we can use? Because right now it's only Ames Web, right, that is state provided. Isn't there a difference between state provided and state approved when it comes to the screeners? Right now, I think they're just saying this is the one you can use, but school systems use different screeners, like we use EasyCBM.
Yeah.
But the law does not let us use anything in place of the TCAP ELA. Isn't that correct?
Well, did they ever clarify? Because in one of my meetings with TSBA, they were still unclear because different pieces were saying different things, and so they weren't 100%.
I thought we were covered under the law with EasyCBM, but I may
So
be right. I may
at
be wrong.
summer
I may be wrong,
law,
rather.
I'll have to go back to my notes, but at summer law, they were talking about how there's a difference between state provided and state
Yeah, Emily
approved.
Warren
Because if you
said
go to the
that.
website, there are what, seven or eight universal screeners?
Yeah.
And different school
We
systems
had to
already.
use the state provided, I know, for the the testing at
The
the end
retest
of
of
the
the-
summer systems.
Right.
And I thought that was the one that was limited to the state provided, but I'd have to check. Yeah.
If it's limited to Ames Web, if that is what they're doing, I think it might be worth considering a resolution that says you have seven, I think it's seven listed on the state website saying these are universal screeners you can use. Why can't school systems already use the ones they've already purchased and have in place and that the kids are accustomed to using? I'll look back in my notes and see what I can find
I
and
will
send it
too.
to you.
For discussion on this item? None? Let Dr. Hall quit writing? No? All right,
All
next
right.
item.
There are no further items, just announcements.
Are there any announcements? Announcements, that's good. Hearing none, all in favor, well, I guess, do we have to make I guess we do have to make a motion to adjourn. We have a motion, is there a second? We have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned.
28 minutes.